Hey guys, I'm going to cover another dinosaur playset in this video. This is the Marx The World of Dinosaurs playset, number 4130 from 1979. And it's a really small set. It's one of the storage box sets that Marx was doing, at that time in 79. They did some military ones and a Western one, but this is the dinosaur one. And they had different color lids to the boxes for the different genre sets. This dinosaur one had this dark pink lid and motif of the box here. And this is the last official Marx dinosaur playset. After this, the current owner of Marx at that time, a British company named Dunby Convex, took bankruptcy like in the early 80s, but this is the last playset that they tried to make for the Marx dinosaur playsets. I mean, times were changing. Most kids weren't playing with playsets anymore, electronic games and arcades, and the technology changed a lot of it and all that. So these things weren't selling a lot back then, and that's the reason this is the last one, and that's the reason they cut down on the size. So, and they cut down on the pieces where they could too, to save money. And so anyway, we're going to take a look at this thing. Oh, and I will say that I do not have the paperwork for this set. This is a pretty scarce set. I bought this from an eBay seller probably, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago. And surprisingly, it was almost complete. It just did not have the paperwork, and it was missing one of the fern bases. And, that's pretty lucky to get that close on something like this. So, I grabbed it up. I forget how much I paid for it, probably 70 or 80 bucks back then. Of course, now something like this would be a lot more than that because of for one thing, the way the prices have changed on collectibles in general. But these dinosaur playsets, there's a lot more demand for this stuff than what I thought when I first started making these videos like 3.5 months ago. And I've been keeping an eye on eBay, and some of these things are selling for a lot more than what I thought. I mean, for a complete version of this set, or even a near complete one like this, just missing the single sheet of paperwork, I don't know what it would cost now, maybe $200 or $300. I don't know. It's a small set. There's not much to it. The point is, it's just scarce, and some of these pieces are unique to this set. And I'll explain that. Let's take a look at this cool box. Great illustration there of some prehistoric animals. You got the, the trope of the Triceratops and the, it looks like a T-Rex, Archaeopteryx, Pteranodon, the standards, but that's a nice little drawing. It's pretty cool. Or watercolor painting or whatever it is. Anyway, it's a nice illustration. And it's, it doesn't give specifics about numbers of things on here. It is number 4130. They always number these playsets. And it just says, very broadly, it just says, set contains dinosaurs, prehistoric men, foliage, plastic rock formation, terrain play sheet. In order to get the correct amount of this stuff, if you want to build one of these from parts that you buy from various sources, usually on eBay, you have to get the information somehow. And there are different sources, and some of them are on the internet, but some of that's dried up. So these videos I'm making are a good source for that, because I have studied this stuff for years, and I pretty much know what goes in these things, and I cover this in my videos for my own enjoyment and for information for collectors that want to rebuild these things. Now, the other side, the back of the box, is a photo of the thing set up. And you know, it says usually these box photos, they always have these disclaimers about blah 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 may vary, you know, color, whatever. And even this says color and or decoration may vary from illustration, which this is not an illustration, it's a photo. But it also says all content shown. And that's something that they usually didn't have on these boxes, that bit of information there. Boy, that camera. So anyway, it shows the contents. And contrary to information that I have found from various sources, which some state that it had a complete mold group of cavemen, which is 6. This only shows 4. And the guy that I bought this from had the 4 cavemen. And, you know, it makes sense. I mean, they were cutting down on everything else. Why not cut down on that too? But had the 2 palm trees and the 2 ferns. Had the revised mold group, 8 dinosaurs in that yellow, canary yellow or whatever, and had the medium mold group, the 6 dinosaurs in the cobalt blue. And the only other playset to feature these pieces in these colors was the 4208 from the previous year, 1978. And I did a video on that. I'm going to put a link to that video in the description of this video. So you can check that out if you want to. But this one and that one are the only 2 playsets to have the dinosaurs in these colors and the cavemen in this different shade of the brown or dark tan called butterscotch tan. And I'll show you the other parts of the box here. Yeah, that Glendale, West Virginia plant was still in operation when this was made. This is the last one they cranked out, though. I think that plant went out in 1980 when Dunby Convex had pretty much shut down Marx operations. And here's the top. You know, the lid is pretty substantial. You know, it's thick plastic. Usually these things are really messed up when what few you ever see turn up on eBay. These boxes are really screwed up. This one is remarkably nice, and the box just fits down over it like that. It's about the size of a big cereal box. These are called storage boxes. And we'll look at the contents here. I bumped the Allosaurus. So this terrain piece here is one of the unique pieces to this set, aside from the box and the playmat. This is vacuform, just thinly molded. It's got some cracks in it, you know, some minor cracks, but usually these things were just damaged and thrown away. What few sets of this you see probably wouldn't have any of these, and if you do have them in there, they are, you know, like really mashed up and screwed up. This one's fairly decent. It's got a couple of cracks in it. And it has a place where something was mashed in on it here, and I corrected it by popping it back. Yeah, right there. But it's still, you know, it shows where that plastic was stressed when I popped it back out. It doesn't show on top, which is what really matters for the display. But anyway, that's that little bitty vacuform terrain piece. You know, big deal. What a terrain piece. But it's unique to this set, so it's you know, significant for that. It's got the playmat, which is pretty decent. It's of course a lot smaller than the playmats that came with the mountain sets, and it also came with 2 trees and 2 ferns. And these brown pieces, the cavemen and the trees and fern bases, came in this butterscotch tan, they call it, which is a darker version of the brown. And it could be any 2 trees, I'm sure. It's just when they have the original mold group for the trees was 4 palm trees and 4 fern bases. So, you know, they just put half, grabbed whatever 2 came up, I'm sure, when they filled out these sets. And here's the fern base. Now, this is the fern base that came with it in the butterscotch tan. And I checked my stash, and I did not have an extra one in the butterscotch tan because there's not a lot. That's fairly rare to find that, you know, that version of the color of it, you know, that shade or whatever. So I just replaced the fern base with an older one that's in regular tan. It's the same piece. It's just you know, a different shade. That did not originally come with this set, but it's standing in for it, you know. Sometimes you got to do that with this stuff, especially the hard to find pieces. And I've got a couple of ferns in here. Here's a 4-leaf one, and here's a 3-leaf one, you know. Just regular Marx stuff. And of course, you know, the palm fronds. These are a couple of double trunk trees, so it required 4 palm fronds. I don't remember if the original seller of this from eBay included all 4 of these or not, but I mean, these were easily grabbed because I've had a stash of extra pieces that I used to fill in. Now, all of that might have come with it. I don't remember. But take a look at the dinos real quick. Now, these garish colors were introduced in 1978, the year prior from this set, in that 4208 set. And these colors of these dinos were only in those 2 Marx dinosaur playsets. Here's the Brontosaurus. Of course, this is the revised mold group with 8 dinos, the PL 977. Brontosaurus in the canary yellow. Tyrannosaurus, a sleek T-Rex in the yellow. Trachodon. Allosaurus. And some of these Allosaurus, you know, it's kind of weird. The tails look shortened on some of them and longer on others, but there's no breaks or anything. Some of them were just short molded on the tail. I guess just part of the molding process. It's not a defect or anything. It's just the way they came out of the mold. Ankylosaurus in the yellow. And personally, I don't really care for these colors. Now, if these colors were of the playset that you had as a kid, you identify with them, and they might, you know, they probably appeal to you from the fun you had playing with it as a kid, and that's cool. I just, I mean, I bought my 4208 from 1978 with these color dinos in it, new. And I had boxes of Marx dinos in, you know, playset parts at that point, so I identified with the older pieces more. Here's a Triceratops. And here's the Dimetrodon in that canary yellow. And, you know, these colors, they just seem garish and inappropriate to me. They do seem kind of cool on a certain level because there are so few of them, only being from 2 playsets. But they made quite a few of that 4208 playset. They didn't make many of this one right here. This one's legitimately scarce. Here's the Trachodon from the medium mold group. There's 6 dinos in the medium mold group. It's PL750. Here's the Hadrosaurus. And you know, whoever I bought this from on eBay that had this thing almost complete, they didn't have any damage to anything. They must have been really careful with it. Now there's a slight molding defect where the side is bulging there on that Allosaurus, and you run into that sometimes. Not a big deal. I mean, I don't think that really changes the collectible value of it or anything like that. But for some people, they might prefer not to have that. It doesn't bother me. Here's the Ankylosaurus from the medium mold group. I like the cobalt blue better than that yellow for these things. And here's a molding defect there on the side of that Stegosaurus too. Yeah, these molds were old by this time, so you ran into stuff like that. Also, the quality control probably wasn't as high as it was early on. Here's the Pteranodon. Because Marx was sold in 1972 to Quaker Oats, and before that, Lewis Marx was like over all that stuff. But when he sold it to Quaker Oats in 72, although they still had good quality product, it didn't have the stamp of approval by Lewis Marx on it. And I'm sure that the quality control dropped some. Now here are the 4 cavemen that originally came with the set in the butterscotch tan. And I'm going to block off the background and see if the camera can endeavor to focus. I don't know how you guys are perceiving that. Well, I can see it on my screen there, but a lot of the nuances for color and shading do not show up well on camera. You got to see them in person. The butterscotch tan is noticeably different than the regular tan from the older cavemen. There's the guy with the stone club or axe and knife. Here's the short guy with the spear. And ordinarily, I would agree with the sources that said that this probably contained 6 cavemen to start with, because that's a mold group. Usually, you wouldn't think they'd cut down from 6 cavemen just to cut corners by 2 cavemen. But this illustration right here and this information that says all content shown shows 4 cavemen. I've studied this this photo. It's not an illustration, it's a photo. And there are no more cavemen hiding that I could see in there. So, you know, it looks like 4 cavemen. And it could be 4 of any pose, you know. I mean, now, what I've done is go ahead and add the 2 missing poses from the complete cavemen group. Here's the guy walking with the club. Now, these are older from like, this would be like from a mountain set or whatever. Or maybe that 3398 from 1971. They're in the correct kind of plastic, the waxy heritage plastic, but they're just a different shade. They're the older tan shade. But it fills out the group, so I mean, if you want to be technical about it, probably these 4 here are the only ones that are included, you know, new in these sets. I just added those just to be thorough. And that single sheet, instruction sheet, and a combination information instruction sheet that I do not have is very similar, I'm sure, to the single sheet that came in the 4208 from 1978. You know, it just lists a little drawing at the top, and the only thing to assemble in this is just ferns and trees. You know, that's no big deal there, but I'm sure they probably put a little illustration up there for it. But they generally just listed all the dinosaurs that was in the set, you know. And this one only had these 14 dinos, and some of them are repeated, so, you know, like 3 of them are repeated, and 4 of them actually are repeated. So, you know, you're talking about like, what, 10 different dinosaurs that they'd have to list. It might have even been a one-sided sheet. I don't know. They certainly didn't have to list much. And one of these days I may run across one, but I'll probably go the rest of my life and never see the thing, and I'm okay with that. It's not that big a deal. I know what it probably looks like. And I'm not so obsessive that I have to have every little scrap, you know, that fills them out. To me, this is complete as far as I'm concerned for my needs. Now I'm going to pause this and set it up for you and take a look at it. And we have the setup. The playmat is 18 by 24, according to the information on the box. Haven't measured it, but that looks about right. And you know, it's just a cool little playset, nothing earth-shaking at all. What makes it significant is the fact that it's so scarce. For collectors, it's a tough buy because you just can't find them. They turn up, or parts of them turn up on eBay occasionally. You see the boxes once in a while. Sometimes they have a different colored lid because some of the other genre storage boxes for the play sets had they all had their own color, you know, and the prehistoric color is of course the dark pink. But some people evidently had the other sets and lost the lids and switched them around and stuff like that. So sometimes you see blue lids or whatever, but the pink is the correct because it matches the box. As you can see, color motif on the box is the dark pink. And, you know, I mean, of course, you see these colored dinosaurs occasionally. Usually they came from the 4208 because it's not particularly scarce. It's in pretty high demand because it came out in 1978, and a lot of people now that would be after something like that, you know, are still around. And it's not like a set that came out in the late 50s, and a lot of some of those people have either passed on or whatever. But stuff from the 70s in general is a little bit more popular because there are a lot more people after it now with disposable income. So anyway, the cavemen, likewise, that color of the cavemen, that butterscotch tan, came out with that 4208 also from 1978. So you know, you can still find that the dinosaurs and the cavemen in the correct colors on eBay, usually from the 4208, and they fit into this set perfectly because that's what came with this set. But the unique pieces are the playmat, the box, the terrain piece, that little vacuform piece right there, and that single sheet information instruction sheet that came with it, which I do not have. So that's pretty much a a look at this playset. Not a lot to it. Like I said, the reason it's special is because it's hard to find, and the value for it is in the fact that it's so scarce. You know, and some collectors wanted to complete their sets of Marx dinosaurs. You know, so anyway, that's the look at Marx The World of Dinosaurs playset number 4130 from 1979, and it's the last official Marx dinosaur playset. Even though in the 90s there were some Marx dinosaur playsets, that's in name only. That doesn't have anything to do directly with Louis Marx Company, which this does. This was this was owned by Dunby Convex, but it's still Marx. Just as Quaker Oats, you know, the sets in the mid 70s were owned by Quaker Oats, but it was still Marx. So that's the look at this little set. Hope that was informative and enjoyable, and I will see you guys a little later with some more dinosaur stuff probably, or maybe some monster stuff.